What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here to break down the NFL Week 7 running back slate. Got a lot of good running backs to get over. I mean, this is a good running back week, honestly. There's a lot of good spots for running backs that we're going to get into. But before I do all that, if you're new to this channel, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, turn on the notification bell. All that stuff really helps me grow. Had a lot of growth throughout NFL, NASCAR, NBA. NASCAR's coming to an end. NFL's here. College basketball starts like Thanksgiving. I'm probably gonna, let college basketball season get going for a week or two, and then I'm gonna start making content for it. I love college basketball, so we'll be getting into all that stuff. So be sure to stick around for all of that. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free. It takes 1 second of your time. It really helps me out. So, yeah, let's get into the video. We're gonna start with Joe Mixon, $6,300 going against the Cleveland Browns. When we go look at the offense versus defensive line matchup, it's gonna be slightly negative for Mixon. I'm not gonna lie here. It's not the best, but the line of this game's 50. It's a pretty high scoring game. And the Browns have allowed 16 most points from running backs, so it's literally neutral. That's about as even as you can get. 16. There's 32 teams, 16. But Joe Mixon's way too cheap. He's 6,300, and the thing that makes me like him is his usage. I mean, he's averaging 19.8 carries per game and 4.3 targets per game. He's averaging 24.1, so about pretty much 24 touches per game, which is one of the highest in the league, and I think it might be the second highest on the slate. Yeah, second highest out of the ones I'm interested in, at least. And that's big. Like, you don't see running backs getting that much usage for that cheap. So, I mean, Joe Mixon, I think, had a really kind of rough start and matchup-wise for the beginning of the year, but the rest of the season doesn't look too horrible for him, and I mean, he's been putting up like 15 points on the Colts and 15 points on the Ravens, who are two of the best run defenses in the league, period. So I think Mixon could be in for a big game. He might be kind of popular because of his salary, because he's cheap, and I think people are going to realize that, but he's just way too cheap for me to really not want to go there. Kareem Hunt's up next. They're going up against the Bengals in the opposite side of this game, and I mean, the Bengals' run defense is just bad. They've allowed 11th most points from running backs this year. The Browns are favored in this game. They're averaging, the overall offense versus defense matchup is very, very positive. When we go look at the attempts, in the last 3 weeks without Nick Chubb, he's averaging 14.66 attempts per game, and he's averaging 2.33 targets per game. That's going to round up to 17 touches per game, but we've seen in games where we're playing from ahead, like week 5, he carried the ball 20 times. So he can get 20-plus carries. I wouldn't be surprised by that, and he's cheap enough for me to really want to get there. He's only 6,800, so he's definitely someone I do like to get some exposure to, Kareem Hunt. I think he is in a very, very good spot. Up next, we have James Conner going up against the Tennessee Titans, which on offense versus defense, it doesn't really look good. Like, the matchup really doesn't look that great. Tennessee is, on paper, should have a pretty good run defense, but they've allowed 9th most points to running backs this year, so that's not really too great. This is going to be a high-scoring game, 51.5 game total. It's going to be a close game, and favorites don't really matter in this game. It's just going to be a really close game between these two teams. I think James Conner's going to go under own at $6,800. He's getting good usage. When you go look at that, he's averaging 17.25 carries per game and 3 targets per game. So a 20 carry back. He gets usage in the passing game. I think his price is good, and I don't think people are going to play him. So James Conner looks like a very solid option in my opinion. James Robinson going up against the LA Chargers. It's going to be an overall positive matchup for him. The line in this game is 49.5. They are going to be playing from behind, but the Chargers have allowed the 4th most points to running backs this year. It's been a pretty solid matchup overall for them. He's averaging 14.1 carries per game and 4.33 targets per game, so an 18.5 touches per game basis for James Robinson. And he's also, like, not too expensive, like $6,200. Like, I think the 6K range is just loaded. I mean, we just went over those 4, and there's 2 more guys down there in the 6K range that I think are really good options, in a third one that could be good too. 6K range is loaded. You don't have to pay up for running back. Those 4 guys, all of them have upside. They're all in pretty good matchups. I don't think Mixon's matchup is great, but the usage is so high that I think they're all really good spots. And I mean, we have expensive stacks. Like, if you watch my quarterback video already, you would know that there's going to be expensive stacks for me to get to this week, so we're going to have to get to some cheaper running backs. And, I mean, these aren't super cheap running backs, but they're cheaper, and they're definitely spots I like. There's still definitely value in paying up for running back, though, and Derrick Henry is going to get low-owned this week. The Steelers are a really good run defense. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a great matchup, because it's not. The Steelers are 30th best team, 30th most points to running backs this year, and their offense versus defense matchup does not look great, especially without Taylor Lewan now as well. It's one of the best offensive linemen in the league, period. But Derrick Henry is getting 24.6 carries per game and 3 targets per game. 27.6 touches per game is the lead leaguer by a ton. I mean, he's just been absolutely insane. And, I mean, it's October now. Like, this is when Derrick Henry starts to take over. We've seen him do it the last 2 years, where Derrick Henry just starts to just absolutely take off. Saw it last week. He ain't going to put 40 up against Pittsburgh. I'll tell you that right now. That's not happening. He's just not going to do that. But he's going to be lower owned. And a low-owned Derrick Henry in October, I kind of like. I'm going to get some exposure to him in tournaments just because nobody's going to be on him this week because no one wants to play him against Pittsburgh. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's a great play. I would not touch him in cash. I wouldn't even touch him if I'm just making a few tournament lineups. But if you're mass multi-entering, I think Derrick Henry is worthwhile to get some exposure to because Zeke's probably going to have a ton of ownership. Kamara's going to have a ton of ownership. Aaron Jones is going to have a ton of ownership. But Henry's not. So he's maybe someone to just get off of that and get to. Ezekiel Elliott's another running back that's really expensive. Going against Washington, which the matchup overall doesn't really look great. Washington's only allowed 18th most points to running backs this year. Run defense really isn't that bad. And the game total on this game is only 46.5. Like, it's not that high scoring. We've seen Zeke on Monday night have struggles. I mean, fumbling the ball. It's been a problem for him all year. It was not just that game. He's been fumbling all year at a ridiculous rate, which is just weird. Never seen that from Zeke. That's never really been an issue in his game. So kind of surprised by all that. But he is still getting a ton of usage. I mean, we're seeing him average 16.8 carries per game and 7.1 targets per game, getting 24 touches per game right now. He's definitely someone that is just going to get a ton of volume. And Washington really isn't a matchup I'm scared of. But, I mean, it's just he really hasn't been producing that well. And, I mean, I think that's a product of them having to always play from behind and throwing the ball. And, I mean, Zeke is getting usage in the passing game, but he's not getting all the end zone carries like we've been used to seeing. But I do think Zeke is still a really solid option. Antonio Gibson is only $5,000. Oh, yeah, this is a double backfield. We got Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissic. I'm interested in both these guys against Dallas. Antonio Gibson's $5,000, McKissic's $4,600. I wouldn't play him in the same lineup. Just going to get that out there. Don't do that. But if we want to get some cheaper running backs for tournaments, I'm interested in these guys. Going up against Dallas, whose defense is just, like, garbage. Like, it's just bad. When you go look at the offense versus defensive matchup, it is going to be a very, very positive spot for them. The line of this game is 46.5, and the Cowboys have allowed 19th most points to running backs so far this year. When we go look at the usage, look, Antonio Gibson's averaging 10.66 carries per game, and McKissic's only averaging 4.83, but McKissic's averaging 5.1 targets to Gibson's 3.66. So Gibson's is still averaging more touches, 14.33, but McKissic is getting the ones it's PPR, so what point per target. And we've seen the last 3 weeks 8, 8, and 6 targets for him. When we go look at the snap percentage as well, like they're pretty much splitting snaps. I mean, only averaging 45% is Gibson and 51% is McKissic. I think Gibson is just more useful when he's actually on the field. I think they're both good for tournaments because Dallas' defense is just so bad. They've been allowing so many points, not just to running backs, just to everything this year. Historically bad defense. They're going to be playing from behind, but they both get usage in the passing game, so I'm not too worried about it. Definitely want them in tournaments. Probably not going to go there for cash. Wouldn't do that. I'd stick with more expensive running backs for cash this week. Pretty much that's usually what we're going to do unless we have a super value on a slate, but we don't this week. So I do think those guys are really good tournament options. DeAndre Swift is the other cheap running back that I'm interested in as a tournament option. He's only $5,400. This is a good matchup for him against Atlanta. Overall positive offense versus defensive line matchup. The line of this game set at 56.5. And the Falcons have allowed the 15th most points to running backs. I mean, Alexander Madison was a bust last week, but that's because they got behind by like 30 really early in the game. And, I mean, he just got game scripted out. I think he would have been fine if he didn't get game scripted out of that game. When we go look at usage for DeAndre Swift, he really hasn't been seeing a lot up until last week. He saw 14 carries last week, and he saw 4 targets. If he can get that again, which I'm not saying he will, I think it's really good, but DeAndre Swift is averaging the most fantasy points per touch this year, so that's a bonus. He's been doing very, very productive in the limited amount of usage he's having, and I think it looks like the Lions may start to get him more involved as they did last week. I mean, he's just better than Adrian Peterson at this point in his career. So I do like him as just a tournament guy at only $5,400 to play get in some tournament lineups. I'm definitely going to get some exposure to DeAndre Swift. It's a good matchup. I think the upside for more usage is there. And it's a high scoring game. So DeAndre Swift, definitely someone I want to get some exposure to. Aaron Jones on the cover, my favorite running back play on the week. I'm probably still not going to go there in cash because we'll talk about the usage, but I love Aaron Jones in tournaments this week. I mean, Houston's just terrible against the run. I mean, we saw Derrick Henry go off for 200 yards last week. He's been doing that against them for a few years now, but still, it's just bad. I mean, they've allowed the most points to running backs this year, and they were, I mean, even before Henry, they were like top 5 worst in the league. So overall positive matchup. This game is the highest total game on the slate at 57. They're favored. Aaron Jones gets usage in the running game and the passing game, averaging 15 carries per game and 4.66 targets per game. And we've seen games where he gets 6 and 8 targets earlier in the year. So Aaron Jones, definitely someone who has a ton of upside. I mean, we know Aaron Jones. I mean, he's just basically, he's literally a discount Camaro this week. We haven't even talked about in this video yet, but we'll get to. And Aaron Jones is just someone that, I mean, he's just an explosive running back, really, really talented running back, playing behind a good offensive line against a bad defensive line, a high total game. They're favored. He gets usage in the running game and the passing game, and it's the worst defense against running backs. I love Aaron Jones this week. He's probably going to be my highest owned player overall. I'm just really, I think this is going to be an explosion game for Aaron Jones. We've seen him a few times a year. We saw it earlier this year against Detroit. I think it's going to happen again this week against Houston. He's probably, at this point, my favorite play on the slate overall. He's too cheap at 7,200. He should be higher, like with Camaro and Henry and Zeke, but I mean, he's still kind of close to that range, but he's not as expensive, and I would rather play him than both Henry and Zeke this week. Camaro is Camaro. We'll talk about Camaro, but Aaron Jones, I think, is just an absolute smash play this week, and I want as much exposure as I can get to him. Todd Gurley's up next, going up against the the Detroit Lions. He is $6,000. And Todd Gurley is someone I haven't really wanted to play that much this year, but I mean, he's been looking pretty good. He's been getting usage. Overall, it's going to be a positive matchup. The Detroit Lions have allowed the fourth most points to running backs this year. This game has a 56.5 game total, so there's going to be a ton of scoring. When we go look at rushing attempts, he's averaging 16.5 per game, and then he's getting usage in the passing game with averaging 2.8 targets per game, so about 19.33 touches per game for Todd Gurley. He gets red zone carries as well. I mean, he is going to be a very touchdown-dependent player. He's not going to get you a ton of points off of carries alone because he's just not productive, but he gets a ton of looks in the red zone, and those are good upside touches. So I'm definitely going to get some exposure to him in tournaments. Would not go there for cash though. Mike Davis going up against the New Orleans Saints. It's going to be this is another one of the 6K running backs I think is really good. This is going to be a slightly negative matchup, and the Saints have only allowed 17th most points for running backs this year, but the total on this game is 51. There's going to be a lot of scoring, and since McCaffrey's been out, he's been averaging 15.75 carries per game, and he's averaging 7 targets per game. He's averaging 22.75 touches per game, getting a ton of usage in the passing game and the running game. When he's game script independent right now, when they get behind, he's going to use. When they're playing from ahead, he's going to use. So Mike Davis is definitely someone I want to get some exposure to. He's still too cheap. I mean, New Orleans is kind of a tough matchup, but he's just too cheap for me to avoid him. If you want to get there in cash, I think he's fine. I think he's one of a few cash viable running backs. I think the cash viable running backs on the slate are Mixon, Hunt. I think Connor is too, honestly. Zeke, Aaron Jones, Mike Davis, Camaro. I think those are your cash game running backs you choose from this week. So Davis is definitely in play for that. Maybe not my favorite one, but he's definitely someone I like. If you want to go there, he's got a ton of usage. Matchup isn't there, but the usage is there. So definitely like Mike Davis. And I mean, the Saints defense isn't something I'm really scared of. It's not Pittsburgh, it's not Pittsburgh. It's not Baltimore. It's not Tampa, but it's still a pretty solid run stopping unit. Almond Camaro up next on the flip side, that game's most expensive running back on the slate at $7,900. When we go look at the offense versus defense matchup, it's going to be really positive. I mean, we know Carolina's just terrible against running backs. They've allowed the 6th most points from running backs this year, and pretty much any relevant running back that's torched them, like the 2 guys who sucked against them were David Montgomery, who's just not good, and Kenny Drake is just also not good. But Camaro should be able to torch them. I mean, it's 51 game total. They're favored in this game. When we go look at usage, he's averaging 12.2 carries per game, and he's averaging he's averaging 9 targets per game, 21.2 touches per game. I expect the targets to come a little bit down this week because Thomas is back, but I'm nothing to too worry about. He'll probably still see 6 to 8 targets this week. I mean, he could still see 9 to 10. Maybe they're still going to utilize him like that. I don't think they will because they haven't in the past, but I mean, Kamara's been balling out this year, so maybe they will. I still think he's a great play. He's probably the one guy I'd say is probably a cash lock just because he's got the usage. He's got the home favorite, or I don't think they're at home. He's got the favored matchup. He's got usage in the passing game. He's got usage in the rushing game, and it's Carolina. And we've been streaming running backs for Carolina for 2 years now. So, Alvin Kamara, definitely a great play. And then we're going to close it out with Chris Carson going against the Arizona Cardinals. It's only $6,400. When we go look at the offense versus defensive line matchup, it's going to be a positive spot. This game's 56 total. They're favored in this game. Arizona's allowed the 14th most points to running backs this year. When we go look at the usage, I mean, honestly, Chris Carson's usage hasn't been crazy. Only 12 carries per game, but 5.5 targets per game is impressive. 17.5 touches. I probably want to go there for cash because he isn't getting as much usage as I would like, but definitely tournament upside play. Anyone in Seattle is always in play for tournaments, so definitely got some pretty solid interest in Chris Carson. Has a good matchup, pretty solid usage, especially in the passing game, which I like, and he gets red zone carries as well. So that's all I really got to say in this video. I hope you guys got a lot of good information out of this. Learned some good stuff about the running backs. Make sure to check out the quarterback videos that's just uploaded as well. If you're watching this before Thursday night, check that out. But be sure to stay tuned for the other stuff coming up later this week. You got wide receivers, tight ends, top stacks. So be sure to check all that stuff out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And hopefully we're going to make some money this weekend.